today's video, I am going to analyze my blitz match against none other than young Polish superstar Jan-Krzysztof Duda. So we played this match 10 days ago on chess.com, and it was a very long match. So we played overall 19 games, but his first choice as black was the Grünfeld, and he played it for 5 games. So that will be the topic of this video. So let's see in order how these games went and what we can learn from these games. So I played the usual repertoire for ambitious chess improvers: knight f3, castle, rook to c1. So you could already see it in previous videos. And in the first game, Duda went for d takes c4, and in general this was his main choice during the match. I mean, in one game he started with c5, but in the next move he took on c4. So we will examine this type of positions. I played e4, and he went c5. So this is a main line. D takes on c5, and in the first game of our match, he played queen a5 here, which is a main move. So it did not take me by surprise. I played knight d2. So this is all theory, and in this position the main move and the almost exclusively played move is bishop to e6. So the point is that black has problems with these bishops, with this light squared bishop in this opening, and therefore after bishop c4 he wants to trade it. c4, knight c4, queen c5. So this is how the main line of the course goes, and how it is normally played. So this is the main move, but I believe slightly better for white. And the other move is to play this queen c5 right away. But then after bishop c4, as I said, it will be not so easy to find a good place for this bishop on c8. So this is a rare choice for black, and not very appealing in my opinion. He played rook d8 in the match. So basically it stops knight c4, of course, and it pins me on the d file. I mean, it's a developing move. It cannot be too bad, and it is not too bad, but I believe if white is playing correctly, then he has good chances to keep an advantage. Okay, so here the move is obvious. There is no knight c4, bishop c4. And of course here the most logical is to take with the queen on c5. But in the first game, Duda went for a very, very dubious and very bad move, knight a6 here. The move doesn't look that unusual for the Grünfeld. He wants to play knight takes on c5, and then put pressure even on e4 pawn. Knight can come to d3. So it looks like a typical active-looking Grünfeld move, but in reality it's a very serious mistake. So I would recommend you to stop the video a little bit. Try to find the correct move for white. I failed to find it. Of course, as I normally say, that these first games against someone who is like super strong and world class is not so easy. You have to get to adjust your level, that understand that you are underdog here and so on, but it doesn't mean that you have no chances. So if you manage to find this very nice move a3, then congratulations to you. That's an extremely strong move, and black is already in very serious trouble. So what is the point of the move? The point is that knight c5 now not possible because b4 is winning a piece. And queen takes on c5 looks extremely awkward. So then basically the knight went for no reason to a6, and it is just standing very badly there. And there is an extra reason which the computer points out, that this bishop takes a6 move is very, very strong. So for example, a human move like queen b3, just attacking on f7 keeps a nice advantage for white, but bishop a6 is a concrete way to get a huge advantage. B takes a6 and knight d5. So now the queen is exposed, and once we look around, we see that this queen has no good squares. So if it goes to a5, then bishop c7 is a fork. If it goes to d4, then knight takes e7. See on the board, king h8, knight c6 is another fork on the queen and the rook. So there are really no good squares for the queen. Relatively best is queen b5. So knight c7, another fork. Queen b7, knight a8, and of course black would be completely lost here if not for the move knight e4. So he can create some counterplay like this, but of course after castle, knight d2, bishop d2. So black has a bishop and a pawn for the exchange, but here white has a very nice move, queen e2, with the idea of playing bishop c3, trying to trade this bishop in the next move, or play bishop a5 and rook d1. Sorry, getting access to the d8 square, and the position is too open simply for black to hold it against the rooks. And yeah, it's important to note that bishop b2 is not quite working, because we have this nice bishop a5, bishop c1, bishop d8, bishop a3, bishop e7. So this forced variation, we trade off a lot of things, and basically black is helpless against this idea. So this was also not good. So basically he cannot take on c5. Full position doesn't make much sense at this moment. According to computer, best is to play knight h5, now bishop e3, and now he can take on c5. The point being that after b4, queen a3, this knight is hanging on c3 by this bishop and the queen, and also the b4 pawn is hanging. So this is not good, but instead of b4, white has the strong knight d5 with lots of threats. So like e7 is hanging, b4 is coming, bishop b2, rook b1, knight a4, and a simple short castle is basically finishing the game. We had a very nice threat of playing knight b3, trapping the black queen, and black's coordination is just ridiculous. Like his pieces are just hanging at this moment, like all over the board. So this position is losing. So yeah, even though this knight a6 looks in a way natural move, a3 kind of completely refutes it for black. So it was not a good move. I played kind of an instinctive move c6, but it's not so great. I mean, white keeps some advantage because of the better structure, short castle, knight c5, but at this moment I completely gave up all of my advantage. Again, if you want, you can just stop the video and try to find the best move for white. It is a very nice move, knight b3, taking away black's initiative from the position, and after some trades like rook d1, knight a5, or knight b3. So it's a tempo even on f7, and this is still a slightly better position for white, of course, because these pawns are weak. So yeah, instead I played queen e2 and bishop g4, f3, bishop e6. He was completely fine, and a few moves later I blundered and lost the game pretty quickly. Okay, so that was the first game. In the second game, see very quickly. So in the second game, so e4, c5, d takes c5. He went for knight to a6. So basically, this is the variation what we have seen already in a model game played by Vladimir Epishin. So took, queen d8, rook d8, played e5, so following the course. And in the model game I covered, it was like knight e8, bishop e3, and you may remember that nice exchange sacrifice. Duda, however, played knight to h5. So this is another variation. As I said in that video, all moves by this knight were tested in practice. He went for knight h5, I played bishop e3, and here we can see that this pawn is possible to defend, but this is not really possible to defend. And here Duda went wrong. So here bishop g4 is the theoretical move, pretty much the only move for black. So the point is that after bishop g4, bishop c4, bishop f3, gf3, black is getting this e5 pawn, but white has a majority on the queen side, the pair of bishops, and a very nice move is disposal, which is c6, and yeah, black has to be pretty careful in this position. But in any case, that's what black should do. He played bishop e6, but that's why this e4 e5 push was very important, that this bishop is completely safe on e3, and here I could just play knight g5, challenging that bishop, and black has simply no way to do anything with the c4 pawn. He took on e5, I took on e6, fe bishop c4, up a pawn, sorry, not up a pawn, better structure, bishop pair, queenside majority, anything you want. He played knight f4, I castled, and he went knight d3, and again, I believe a good time to stop the video and try to beat Duda, because I believe if you find this move, then you will win the game. I failed to find this move, so we don't have to be too worried about this knight takes on c1. We have a very nice intermediate move, which kind of clinches the game for white. It is c6, and c takes b7 is such a huge threat that black is losing huge material. For example, knight c1, cb7, rook b8, taking on a6, and this knight is pretty bad to say the least. And when it goes back, bishop a7, white is winning many pawns, b7 pawn is still remaining on the board. This is just completely losing. After c6, it's basically over, so black cannot really do anything here. So yeah, this is just it. Instead, I went bishop e6, which is like typical blitz move, I would say. King g7, rook c2, knight ac5, and now black has some very decent activity here. Ideas like knight bd2 at some moment, my bishop is hanging. Position is more or less equal, maybe a little bit better for white still because of the better pawn structure, but this is quite okay for black. After many huge blunders in this game, I reached a completely winning position, but failed to win, and eventually it was a draw. So this was the second game. Okay, so e4, c5, dc. So queen a5, knight d2, rook d8, bishop c4. He went back to this line, and now instead of this very bad knight a6, he went for knight c6 in the next two games. Probably I did not mention, but this rook d8 is a completely new move, so it was just never played before. This bishop e6 or queen c5, it is just absolutely unknown territory, so it was very good for me to have this opportunity to test and then later analyze these games. So of course bishop c4, and now given knight c6, it's much better than knight a6. So I castled and queen takes on c5. And yeah, basically this is already the critical position of the variation. Okay, so black has Basically, one major problem at this moment that the queen is not really well placed, and it's not easy to find good squares for it. And also the same can be said about the c8 bishop. Basically, it can go to g4, but it can be always kicked very easily, and it's hard to find a good place for it. But okay, he has some nice points of his position, because d4 square is weak, so the knight can come to d4 at some moment. In general, okay, he's pretty well developed, no real weaknesses. So, the position is very concrete, and it requires some very precise play from white to have an advantage. I continued both games with knight d5, which is an extremely natural move. So it opens up the way for the rook, have some knight c7 ideas, and blocks the d file. It looks extremely natural, and indeed it's not a bad move, but I believe objectively it's not enough for an advantage. So probably first I will just show you how the two games went, and then I will show what is my conclusion that how white should play. So knight takes on d5 he played. And in the third game of the match, I played the bishop takes on d5, which is a very bad move. So this looks maybe okay, but it's just very bad. So this already, with this trade of the knights, I make it so much easier for the queen to find good squares. I really exchanged a very good piece. I opened his bishop. It is a huge mistake. So after queen b5, black is already completely fine. I played knight b3, which is sort of tricky move, but of course Duda is not going to blunder something like bishop b2, bishop c6, attacking the queen, and the rook on d8 is hanging. So he instead played bishop e6, bishop takes, b takes, queen c2, and he played rook c8, which is a little bit passive. I mean, c6 is hanging, but actually if he would have played a5, it is already like this typical Grünfeld position, which black really likes. He is going to push a4. The bishops are looking over to these pawns. Yeah, black is already slightly better. So as the game went, I had the chance to liquidate into a drawish type of endgame, but again, I blundered pretty quickly and lost. So it was a pretty bad game by me. So bishop d5 is not correct. So in the next game, when I was white, I took with the e pawn, which is of course much better. So the queen will remain on the c file, and it's a tempo on the knight on c6. So he went knight e5, which is correct. Now I play bishop b3, it's also correct, opening the c file and attacking the queen. He goes queen d4 with the tempo. I go bishop e3 with the tempo. So we were here playing really good. Queen h4 he played. I played knight f3, also logical to trade that active knight, and queen f3. But objectively speaking, this position is once again quite okay for black. He played a little bit risky move, this bishop b2. I mean, it's extremely ambitious, but it's also somewhat dubious in my opinion. So a good move, for example, is to play something like bishop e5, just to cover this important square of c7, so rook cannot go. Bishop maybe can go to d6. If black can trade queens, I mean, that endgame is just completely fine for him. So yeah, this position would have been just around equal. So completely fine for black. Instead, he went bishop b2, and I could play rook c4, queen f6, and rook f4. So playing with a nice initiative here. He went queen g7 and bishop c5. So basically every move I could attack something, which is of course in blitz, a huge deal, huge advantage. And okay, even objectively, this position is very difficult. And he had only one move to make this position playable, but it's, I would say, not so easy. e5. So white is not so easy because it makes this pawn passed, and whenever I can play something like bishop e7, d6, then also f7 can become a target. But you also have to count on d6 and stuff. But computer is saying, and I agree, that this was the only way to to keep the game going. I play something like bishop c4, rook c4 with ideas of bishop e7, as I showed, d6 and so on. So I'm down a pawn, but with an advantage here. Instead, he went bishop f6, which is pretty much losing. I managed to play d6, and with such pieces and a nice attacking point on f7, the bishop f5, the rook e8, basically rook c8, the game is over. I took on b7. It was good enough to win. Rook e1 is even easier. He cannot take my bishop because e8 is a queen, so it is completely lost, and I managed to win here. So these were the two games, but first of all, there is an improvement for black. So he's not obliged to take on d5 in this position. He can simply play queen d4. And this is attacking on e4, and he's using this d4 square, which, for a queen, it looks like a little bit strange that it can be trapped or attacked easily, but yeah, it's not so easy. So for example, queen b3, he can now take, and if I take with the bishop, and there is e6, and this position is completely fine. Like, as we change minor pieces, the easier it becomes for black to work with the bishops and have more space for the queen. Of course, now ed is also not good, because my bishop on f4 is hanging. So yeah, after queen d4, I don't really have any like great moves, and also b2 is under attack. Let's not forget. So if I play something like bishop e3, black can even capture this pawn. So I believe after queen d4, it's extremely hard to find anything for white. Therefore, I believe the critical move, where black has to be extremely precise to be okay, and I'm not sure that he can be okay, is to go from the other side, so to go with knight b5. So it still opens the rook because there is bishop f7, discover check on the queen. There is also knight c7 ideas, and also the d4 square is covered, so that's also pretty important. So in this position, I believe black has to find a pretty difficult move, which is bishop e6. In general, if something like queen h5, these endgames always should be like slightly better, at least for white. So let's say knight c7, he trades, rook b8, and for example, a move like knight e5, rook back, and then playing something like knight b3. White is very well centralized. This bishop is an issue. Knight c7 jumps are always in the air. So black is under pressure here, and the tactical justification of the position is that after knight e4, there is knight e7 check. So if black takes rook b8, and the game is over. Anyway, the game is over because after trading, the material is equal. Rook e1 is coming, knight goes down, bishop d6 is coming. So it is just very bad. So bishop e6 is the correct move here. Knight c7, bishop takes on c4. So now, unfortunately, rook c4 is not leading anywhere. Black has multiple options here, but queen c4 is just good enough. Unfortunately, our queen is hanging on d1. So here knight takes on a8. Black cannot take this because then we just take c4 with an extra exchange. So black has to play b5. So very, very concrete line. And then we go b3, exploiting the pin. And now even rook a8 again doesn't do anything, just bc. So knight e4. Black is down a full rook, but we have pins, hanging pieces. It's not such an easy position. bc, and again one more important move for black, knight to c3. So yeah, we have many loose pieces in the position. Also, there is a pin here. It's not easy to find. If you play queen f3, for example, then there is knight d4 even coming with the tempo, and the knight e2 check. It's a very tough position. It's really worth analyzing because it's so tactical that engine can be a great help, to find the correct way. Bishop e3 probably the best move, with the tempo attacking the queen and protect the bishop from future knight e2 checks. Queen b4, and one more intermezzo. a3 is very strong, apparently, according to the computer. I mean, like taking on c3, bishop c3, and trying to escape with the knight kind of never works because of the pin on the d file, and black is winning back the material. So yeah, that's why we have to find such moves: a, b, knight e3, fe. So we are still up a full rook, and I believe it's not good to take on a8 and not good to take on d2, but there is some move like bishop h6, which basically gives a square for the king. This knight is still hanging. This bishop wants to take on e3. The position is better for white, and there are like 5 moves with more or less the same value, but it really requires very deep analysis to say that which one gives the most the most winning chances for white. So I mean, I encourage you to maybe look at it a little bit yourself. I don't have a clear conclusion so far. I mean, but once again, this whole thing it is basically 11 moves more than the current theory. It's just not impossible that someone plays rook d8 here at all. Like it's a natural move. So yeah, once more this thing queen c5, and then I recommend to play knight b5. And black has a tough time here, but we also have to know how to get an advantage. So that was the third and fourth game in the match, and the last game went extremely well for me. So basically, that was just a complete disaster for Duda, but I made also a very instructive mistake. So he went in that one c5 first, but after dc, queen takes, rook takes, e4, basically we just transposed. And here, instead of the normal move knight a6, which we played in the second game of the match, he played bishop g4, which is not really providing enough compensation for the pawn, to say the least. So he went knight h5, bishop e3, bishop f3, gf, knight c6. It's simply nothing. I am up a pawn. Few weak squares in my camp will not give anything for black. He went knight e5, bishop e2, knight e3. I just took rook d1, like very easy trade. He took on c3, so created double pawns, but yeah, position is completely lost. King f8, rook d7, b6, and okay, the position is completely winning technically, but the reason I showed it up to this moment because like you still have to convert it somehow, and I made a really instructive mistake, which I definitely should not have. I mean, I simply assumed that the rook endgame is easily winning, and I reached the winning position later in the game, like +6 or +7, but it doesn't mean that my decision was absolutely wrong at this moment. So first of all, the tandem of the bishop and the rook is stronger than the knight and the rook. And simply these pieces are working better together. Like I play rook c7, anytime the bishop is coming here, attack here, attack there. The knight is good with the queen, that they can do some tricky business, but here the knight is really just struggling. My structure is actually really good to restrict this knight. So the correct move was just to play something like rook c7 and say that black cannot move. And yeah, that's the case basically. Anytime bc5 is just bishop takes. If he brings back the knight, I can play something like a4. Then, as in the end games, I can bring the king if I want. And if black tries to annoy me with some knight e8, then I simply have a check on h6. King g8, take a pawn, bc, and then let's not forget that I am up a pawn and black is passive and white is active here and taking another pawn. So it is just impossible not to win this position. But rook endgame is possible not to win. And so what I did, is basically a mistake that I simplified. I mean, actually I did not. So like the thing is that I traded pieces, but I did not simplify the position, but made it much more difficult for me. So trading and simplifying is like two completely different concepts. And here, what would have made it much easier for me is to keep this good tandem of rook and bishop on the board. Instead, I went for bishop g5, knight f6, rook c7, and after bc, I took on f6, and I played this position, which looked winning for me, but it's, first of all, it's not that easy. I am not 100% sure that it's objectively winning. I reached a completely winning position, but again, it does not matter, because here I would not have to work at all, and just the position plays itself basically. So anyway, just I wanted to highlight this point that simplifying sometimes makes your task much more difficult. So trade is not by definition doesn't mean simplification. So for example, in such positions, simplification would be if I could, like, let's say, take on b6, a b6, and then trade the rooks and trade the knights in one move. I mean, that's real simplification to opponent game, and it involves trades. So, but yeah, it was not possible. So in any case, these were the 5 games I played against Duda. It was and after this game, which I just after this end game, which I'm just showing to you, he switched to the Nimzo Indian. So next 4 games were in the Nimzo Indian, which may be a topic of another video. I haven't analyzed those games yet. Maybe it can be instructive. In any case, I hope you liked the video, and if you are interested in the course, since it's Black Friday, it's again on sale, so you can check it out in the description, and see you soon with some new videos.